Safaricom is one of those companies that will term as customer centric. Like they focus on the needs of the customers. Even however much it comes at a higher cost, they think of their
Mm.
customer. Think about their products, the data bundles, Tunukiwa, M-Pesa, Internet
All.
Home, Lipa na M-Pesa, subscription, airtime, internet. The worst of it, Fuliza. So it's very hard to boycott such a company when your lives have been integrated to like that.
When
Like
a product has reached that level, or a brand has reached that level where you're like, I'm empesaring you, or I am fulizering, you know. So when you reach that point of ubiquity, it means that a brand has been so well integrated into the society that it is very hard to disassociate from that brand, no matter how your feelings are. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Marketing Matters podcast. Here we talk about marketing strategy, digital trends, and tech. I'm your host, Stephen Atema,
Amatema Victoria.
and you're most welcome. So let's talk about Vicky. Today's the topics that made news in the marketing scene last week. And this week is a bit interesting because we are not just talking about the marketing end, but also about some regulations and about technology companies. So today we cover several news, and we are starting with Safaricom's PR nightmare. Then we'll deal with a company called Perplexity and what is it's doing to publishers. Then we have several things about what is happening in EU, and then a report on Gen Alpha's tech sophistication. So yeah, let's get started, Vicky. On our first story, Safaricom has had one of its worst weeks, and we're not talking about the financial end. So in Kenya, last week we had a very big protest with majority of the citizens complaining about the level of taxation in our finance bill, but also complaining generally about the state of the government and the wastage that is happening in government. Now, on the day of protest, which was on 25th of June, we had a challenge with the connectivity on our social media platforms, and because Safaricom is the biggest distributor of in terms or the biggest distributor of the data, both on the home fiber and on the mobile regular data. There was a challenge in communicating, especially for people who are trying to log into the social media platforms between 5 and 6 p.m. Kenyan time. Safaricom and even Airtel came out and said there is a challenge with the network. But then Safaricom went ahead and even did a press release saying that the network outage was caused by a cable that had been cut, those undersea cables. But then the next day, there were several international companies that had noted that there was a big throttling or a huge throttling of the data speeds on the Kenyan space, which suggested that it was not only an issue with the cable, but it was something that suggested that the throttling of internet speeds might have been deliberate. Now that caused a lot of issues with people because the communications authority had said the previous day that they were not going to cut down internet no matter how bad the protest would be. Safaricom itself, even the CEO came out and said, we have challenges on there's challenges on the undersea cable, and the team is trying to resolve it. But based on what people are seeing online, it suggested that Safaricom, or people thought, or people believed that Safaricom, like, despite the fact that this throttling happened even on the fiber and not fiber, I mean on people who are using other internet service providers like Zuku and Airtel. But yeah, that was the week for Safaricom, at least in this week. What do you think, Vicky, might have happened in that scene, and what are your thoughts in what's happening in the Safaricom's comms and PR team side?
Well, I think you've already explained really what happened. Um, from my end, I would say I was a bit disappointed because I would not expect that from Safaricom. In
Mm.
terms of integrity, I would I would prefer them to just be quiet or no comment.
Mm.
Like the way you'll go to court, and if you're not supposed to say something that you think might implicate you, you just say, is it sixth or the fifth, the fifth
In
command, or
America,
is it
I plead the fifth.
Yeah, I plead
Fifth
the fifth.
Amendment.
Yeah, I wish they would just do that.
Yes.
But from a
Yes.
marketer's opinion, when people were saying we are going to boycott the Safaricom services,
Yes.
I was just
Mm.
thinking, okay, Safaricom is one of those companies that will term as customer centric. Like they focus on the needs of
Mm.
the customers. Even, however, much it comes at a higher cost, they think of their
Mm.
customer. Think about their products, the data bundles, Tunukiwa, M-Pesa, Internet
All.
Home, Lipa na M-Pesa, subscription, airtime, internet. The worst of it, Fuliza. you know, they thought about the customer every time they do their services, even if it's at higher cost. So it's very hard to boycott such a company when your lives have been integrated to like that. Like you think about
Yes.
Fuliza, the way every time you transact, every day you are charged like 20 shillings. Every time you transact, there's a cost in it. But customers
Mm.
have reached a point where they are transacting with the Fuliza, but the cost is high, but they do not even think about it. It's just that it's in them. They have accepted the
Yeah.
cost. They do no longer complain about it. So it's very hard to boycott such a service. Such a business.
Mm.
It's like saying the way businesses will say we'll boycott cashless payment because it's becoming too
Yes.
expensive. I mean, customers have already shifted to use
Yeah.
the cashless payment. It's very hard to really imagine if they say we boycott Safaricom right now.
Mm.
You transact using M-Pesa. You do Lipa and M-Pesa. Everywhere you go, don't want to withdraw money to be able to make the payment. It's very hard to do that.
Yeah.
However, I would just say maybe Safaricom next time, they better just plead the fifth instead of
You are giving them a
making
warning.
comments that, yeah, don't make comments that will make you to like because people they have trusted your brand so much, so don't disappoint us.
Mm.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah, I think they have learned, and like you said, it's true. Safaricom is ubiquitous right now because everything that you do, in marketing or in brand communications, when a product has reached a point where you refer to that service with the brand name, like say, I am going to M-Pesa you, like that is you. When a product has reached that level or a brand has reached that level where you're like, I'm M-Pesaing you or I am Fulizaring, you know so when you reach that point of ubiquity, it means that a brand has been so well integrated into the society that it is very hard to disassociate from that brand, no matter how your feelings are. And of course, most users would have been disappointed with knowing that. And again, this is your word against Safaricom's, because they are saying that the internet cables were cut. This is just an issue of trust now. And
yeah,
in my view, while of course the throttling was unfortunate, and I cannot claim to know that indeed Safaricom did what people claim it did, but the fact that they came out with that, and then other entities or other other platforms or other service providers came and said, you know what, there's an internet challenge, but they were not explicit on why the challenge was. So for Safaricom, maybe it was something that they ought to have, like you said, kept quiet, or at least just tell guys there's an internet outage and you're trying to work on it. And I'm sure they are going to learn from this mistake. In fact, the whole even the statement from the CEO, because even the statement from the CEO was mainly addressing that issue about guys complaining about Safaricom sharing their location data with the security agencies, and they're like, no, we cannot share data unless we have been compelled by the court order. So again, they have the biggest concern I have here is that while it is ubiquitous and people will still use it, people use it until they don't have to use it. And that's the biggest
yeah.
problem for a brand like Safaricom, that you don't
Mm.
want to be in a place where I am with you because there is no other option, because then
Mhm.
that creates a very big issue between you and your customer, where should any other service provider step up and do the right thing, then chances are people will move. Then there's also this bit about people saying as influencers, because when you talked about the boycotting, you're talking about mainly the customer side, but even influencers came out and say, uh, I as an influencer will no longer work with Safaricom because they don't represent my values and whatnot. And I'm like, okay.
No comment.
Okay, good for you. Good for you, but you have to sometimes don't. I don't want to act like I am part of the establishment, but don't make statements
Yeah.
in the heat of things, because this is the Safaricom is the biggest company in East and Central Africa. They are the biggest advertiser. If you're an influencer, unfortunately, you cannot afford to not work with Safaricom, especially if you want the guys who are paying the market rate. Now, that does not stop you from calling out Safaricom, but you cannot go. I believe, of course, you can because you did, but it is not. It's not smart to go out and
Yeah.
publicly announce that you are not going to be working with Safaricom for the foreseeable future, because
Mhm.
I can almost assure you that the people who are cheering you right now, that it's good, you, yes, we want you to support, to not work with Safaricom, will be the same people who will be bashing you the next time you go back and start a campaign with Safaricom, because they'll be like,
Mhm.
you guys, you said. So it's very dangerous to make statements out of in the heat of things, because when you say such, you are also not just talking to Safaricom, you're talking to any other corporate that is thinking about
True.
working with you. And corporates are like stability. They don't want to be in a campaign with you where they know maybe you're doing a creative for them, and they know that this creative will be circulating for the next 2-3 years, and they fear that after 6 months, if the tide changes against them, you shall also change and renege on your obligation. So it's a it's not it's not to curtail people's view of things. You can have an opinion on a brand or on a company, but when it comes to commercial arrangements, I think you ought to try to reflect on the implications of your statements, uh, especially if you heavily reliant on that brand. So call
Yeah.
the company out, but don't sever ties in the heat of things to just be popular. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my thoughts. Anything to add on that, Vicky?
No, I think it's as you said, like Safaricom is one of those few companies in Kenya that are supporting influencers in a great way.
Creatives.
So making such
Mm.
statement is is very risky. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not because we are saying that Safaricom is a big brand that it will blacklist you, but we hope that it
Yeah.
would blacklist those influencers. But it's looking at the realities
And again, it's
of
not.
how commercial companies work.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it's not that they have done a very, it's not like they have been doing these things on and on. It's just a one time, companies make mistakes. We let it
It's not a
pass.
habit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so another interesting news for those who are interested in the AI race. There's a company called Perplexity, and Perplexity is a company that they term themselves as an AI. I don't want to use the word search engine, but an AI. What do they call it? They say we are an AI powered answer engine, which is just fancy for such generative experience brand. So it's a company that helps you or helps users to get answers on either Bing, Safari, or Chrome or whatever browser you're using, in a manner that Google was not able to do previously. Remember, Google was very struggled very much to try to catch up with OpenAI. So this Perplexity company, what it did was it allowed you to search on all these browser platforms, mainly Google, Chrome, and Bing, to search for answers, but to be reflected, or for those answers to appear in a more in a less like a search result, but more like an answer. So for the longest time before Google caught up, the company has been growing in leaps and bounds. But recently, they have gotten into problems with publishers, and most of these publishers are news entities that charge folks for accessing their content. Let's say there's a company called Wired, there's Forbes, there's the New York Times, Washington Post, and they are accusing this company of crawling their site and generating answers for users who are accessing it for free. And the case that was raised was the Forbes one, where they are saying they took some of their answers. Actually, according to them, they took all their answers and gave it as a search result, but they were not attributing search answer to Forbes. So there's a whole issue with them, and now they have raised the issue with the guy who are hosting them, who is Amazon Web Services. And for context, why this case is also interesting is Perplexity is partly owned by Jeff Bezos, so it creates a very huge conflict of interest, and we can only wait and see how Amazon Web Services will react, because part of the terms of service of Amazon's for people to be hosted on their platform is that they should not engage in such practices. Now, again, uh, a website crawling other websites for answers is not necessarily illegal, but it is those things that are gray areas. It's not illegal, but it's also not encouraged or accepted by publishers, especially people who generate revenue from their intellectual property through their articles and whatnot. But yeah, so that's happening on that end. And I just like to hear your thoughts, Vicky, before I try to understand, to help the audience understand how what perplexity is, and how different it is from the ChatGPT option.
Yeah, I've not used Perplexity for long, but I've tried to. I was just doing a comparison with ChatGPT, and I think it's true. It's a bit advanced. It gives more details. It's almost acting like Google. Is just that it's not giving you many options. It's showing where they got the data from, and then it gives you the
Simplifying
answers.
your search results.
Yes. However, okay, I think the more we have this AI advancement, and the technology keeps changing, we are going to reach a point where we are having a thin line of the data protection and privacy stuff. Because
Mm,
now, if crawling was never an issue, but now it's like you have to crawl, but you don't have to crawl. Like, we are going to reach a point where
mhm,
it's like the rules are going to be either they'll have to really tighten the rules, or they'll have to accept, or it will have to be a discussion, like, is this right,
mm,
is this wrong? Because now it's becoming a gray area, when the more we
mm.
have this AI integrated on all these social media platforms and any other platforms that we have. So we just wait to see.
Yeah. It's going to be very, very, very hard at first for us to get to a point where everybody understands what are the do's and don'ts in terms of what
Yeah,
you can do as an engine, and what you are supposed to do as a publisher, and what your rights are, and how it's still a long way from us getting clarity on understanding what is right, what is wrong, and what are the
yeah,
implications for people breaching different
yeah,
things. Now, for people who have not yet used Perplexity, like I said earlier, it's just a search engine. It's a search engine that allows you to get results in a more conversation, not really fully conversational manner, but in a more in a yeah, let's just call it conversational manner, as opposed to when you are searching on Google currently, you search and then you get a list of results for you to filter for yourself. Now, initially, when Perplexity started, it had an advantage, because it would list for you. I'm asking about the best car in the market, and then they would list for me. They would list for me maybe the cars that are the biggest sales cars, and they'll tell me where they got that information. In fact, at the top, they used to have a list of sources. But then, as time has gone, ChatGPT has also improved on its solutions, because ChatGPT was a language that it was a conversational language, but it would only give you results based on what you type. Like, if I search the best car, ChatGPT will give me an array of solutions in a conversational manner, but it won't give me sources. But ChatGPT 4 right now can give me sources for me to go and cross-reference what I've read, and now I can. It's getting more and more into the space of what was the niche for Perplexity, because Perplexity was just like a generative search engine. Now, again, what complicates Perplexity's future is Google's Gemini is now going to be doing what these guys are doing. And
yeah,
what that means is, basically, their whole business model is going to be obliterated by the fact that when Google launches Gemini for the public, it will do even a better job, because Google crawls its own sites. it has a it will definitely likely have a better engine, and it will better AI integration and whatnot, and it will make it harder for people to search for Perplexity as their go to platform for searching site. So it's a very interesting site, even as people, as companies, publishers mainly, take issue with Perplexity. Google Google is going to get to get into this space, and it will be an even bigger issue for most publishers. But let's see how that goes in terms of
Yeah.
how the market develops and whatnot. Another thing, Perplexity also uses ChatGPT, so it's it just uses ChatGPT and other AI models. But I would urge you to try to understand about how the product or the company works. But I can almost assure you that when Google's Gemini launches, Perplexity's business model will be now on board. But on to the next story. So EU is known for regulations, and it has some of the toughest regulations for the tech companies. And this time, it is hitting some of the biggest brands in America. And the first one is Apple. And Apple is having several issues with the EU. The first one that we saw, or that was announced the other day, is Apple will not be launching their Apple Intelligence in EU for the next few months. Although it has also not launched in US, but it will take longer to launch in EU, and they're saying because of the EU's regulations and several things or concerns that Apple has against the regulations. The regulations that have come in place in March this year were called the Digital Markets Act. And basically what this act or these regulations are is trying to ensure that there is some fair play with the tech companies, but also trying to protect the user data and whatnot. Now Apple is saying that this act is going to also stifle some of its innovations, because maybe according to them, again this is Apple's word, that it's going to cause it's going to expose some of the its users, this is iPhone and Mac users, to to malware and attacks and whatnot, data security issues. So they are waiting for the launch, even as they not for the launch, yeah, for the release in this market, even as they talk to the EU. But then also there is also another issue on Apple, and again still on the Digital Market Act. It's an issue about Apple charging what are they called? Apple charging the developers who put products on the App Store. Yes, developers an additional cost for them to give people an alternative. What does this mean? If I have a product on my app, let's say it's you're selling toys on an app that is on app, or games. You're selling a game on an app on the Apple App Store. If when somebody wants to purchase it, if they could purchase it cheaper via the website, Apple restricts you to tell customers that. So companies have been forced to always push the Apple Store content and whatnot, but at the detriment of the customer, because EU is focusing on the rights of the customer and whatnot. And Apple again is talking about, if we take people to third parties and other applications, it compromises on security. But that is a big issue for EU, and they're saying if there is a cheaper option, Apple should tell the customer that you can download this on App Store, but you can also, even if it's a small disclaimer down there, tell them, or allow the developer to tell them that they can also get it at maybe at an alternative place, which will likely be cheaper. Why is it expensive on App Store? Because Apple charges a 30% commission on all the revenue that a developer collects. So assuming you charge 1,000 shillings for maybe a download of a game, Apple will take 300 of that. But if you were to go to the site and that game is 700, of course it will be cheaper. But then Apple does not want people to go there, because it eats their commercials. Then there's also that issue about if you as a developer have an app outside the App Store. If a guy on Apple or on Mac downloads that content or that app and it's installed as a third party, Apple charges you 50, I think it's 50 euros or something, 0.5 euros for that. So that's also another issue of contention. And the case has started, but we are waiting to see how long it will take. Of course, the EU also requires that a case like this should not take more than a year since it started. So it's something that it will be interesting to watch, because it will set a precedent for most of the other tech companies that have some what they would call predatory practices in EU. Vicky, thoughts?
Yeah. Okay. For you see, Apple is already competitive enough. In fact, they were saying, why are they saying that we are being anti-competitive in a market that we already own? That was one of their comments. But I think
Their
you,
marketplace.
uh,
Actually, the argument is this is our marketplace. We should do what we want with
yeah,
it.
yeah. But I think it's good for them to be given such kind of restrictions, because these big companies, um,
Mm.
when you read these articles, they are called gatekeepers. The Google, the Apple, the Meta. If you don't give
Microsoft.
them such kind of regulations or restrictions, they are likely to come and just overtake the market and also make other businesses to kill other businesses in a way. So I think these
Yes.
regulations are also good to just keep them afloat, like to make them also scratch their heads and see how best they can be able to satisfy their customers and also be fair in the market, because now we can't just allow them to do as they want. The regulations is also very
Mhm.
important for them. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And just on the same matter, the same thing with Microsoft. Talking about monopolies, Microsoft has also had this. Is also in this issue with the EU about they are being accused of bundling products and killing competition. So what does that
Mm,
mean? So Microsoft, everybody knows who is working in an enterprise setup, which is corporate world, that you cannot operate without the Microsoft suite of products. This is Excel, Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Publisher and whatnot.
mm,
But then Microsoft came up with this solution called Microsoft 365 that also adds the Zoom, not Zoom, the Teams solution,
mm,
which is basically
mm,
a Zoom, but then they are saying this product is more or less free. So what EU is saying is, by Microsoft doing that, it's abusing its monopoly, because it's offering a product that has competition, but it's offering it to the customer as quote unquote free. And what
mhm,
this does is, if you're an enterprise or if you're a business and you have subscribed or purchased the Microsoft Enterprise solution, your motivation to go and use third parties, like if you wanted to do, if there is a publisher that if there is a competitor product that can offer you the Teams solution, maybe Slack, or Slack is for that, the management of Teams inside. I don't want to use Teams because Teams is a Microsoft product. But if you want, to manage your your staff, let's call them the product teams, you would use Slack. But Microsoft tells you can use Teams, even though Slack is a bit what's the word? Is a bit uh um is better in terms of maybe the features and whatnot. As a brand, you're looking at it in the sense that I am technically getting a Slack for free. And again, there's a reason why even Slack was acquired by, I think it's Microsoft, because of such things. Then you want something like Zoom, but then you are like, Teams is offering also meetings and webinars. It's not the best, but as an enterprise, you're thinking it is cost free. So you are killing the other competition that would have offered better services to the customer, because you're using your monopoly to bundle products and sell them as effectively free. Because what they'll say, you get Microsoft 365, but we'll add Teams for free. Now, after they kill the competition, what happens is they'll raise the price of the bundle and say, okay, now this bundle has gone. But then EU is saying, for fairness, we want you to tell guys, this is what Microsoft Windows not Windows. This is what Excel will cost you. This is what Word will cost you. This is what Teams will cost you, and then offer the bundle, but don't offer only bundles and kill competition. That is the biggest concern that EU has, especially in terms of saying they are stifling competition and even innovation in the tech sector. What thoughts, Vicky?
Um, I think it's as you've said, just commented on it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like they're arguing, or and it's true that if you are an enterprise and you have Microsoft 365, chances are if there's a better tool for offering you PowerPoints, you will likely still use your Microsoft products. If there is a better tool for offering you conferencing services, you will highly like if you had a team, like say the platform that we're using even to host our webinars, chances are that if you're an enterprise, you would want to use this platform, but the additional cost of subscribing to this platform, you would rather just use Teams with its issues. And Microsoft has been arguing that if Teams is bad, or if their suite of services is bad, then why don't customers use the alternative? But people are arguing it is hard for a business to justify that there is a better platform when you're telling them you're giving them, yeah, the solution effectively for free. So that is something that EU again is riding in. My only concern with these regulations is what is the limit for EU, because EU is now being known as a region where innovations go to die. So they have so much regulation that now when people want to innovate, they incorporate their businesses in either UK or in America, which is also something that is negative for the EU region. I would just hope that these
Sure.
regulations also don't overreach to stifle innovation and competition, because when you also become a hindrance to innovation, because there's also, I think, another regulation that is coming on the AI issue, and guys are saying AI is such a small and a young innovation. For you to start creating innovation, let people understand the product more. But when you create regulations about the product or about any sector, then you are already chasing away the key talents, because sometimes innovation is things outside regulation, such things. Yeah. On to our final story. Now, there was a report that was issued, or that was done, talking about what Gen Z's level of sophistication is, and they're arguing that if you are a business, you need to maybe change the way you advertise to these demographics. And what most of the things that they were saying was, this generation is more savvy, that this generation is more keen or follows commercials more than it follows influencers, and so your commercials or your advertising has to be creative. Then there was that issue about the content they follow is edutainment, which is entertainment that has some educational value. And as a brand, you need to look at how you can have your brand or have your advertising try to show some value. They are keen on games, mainly, but games that are also have some additional educational content. And if you want to capture them, you need to have ensure that your ads have some quick tips, actionable insights, and that are short. But and also, for those who may be wondering, who is the Gen Alpha that we're talking about? Now we have Gen Alpha, we have Gen Zs. Now, to put it simply, Gen Alpha is a generation of a demographic which is less than, let's say, 14 years from now. For anybody 14 years, between 14 years and 1 year, that is what we would define as a Gen Alpha. And then you move to the Gen Zs, who are causing a lot of havoc and problems for the political class all over the world, actually. And those are now between ages of 15 years or 16 and 27 years. And then we have the millennials between 28 and 30 and 44. And then, of course, the elderly, the Generation X. So, Vicky, what are your thoughts on this report about how to advertise on Gen Alpha? Because I also have my thoughts, but I would like to hear what you are thinking about this report.
In 2020, when we had the pandemic, I think that really brought a lot of transformation because much information was shared on the online space, and it became readily available. It became almost free. Like you get much information almost free on the social media platforms, on YouTube, and thereabout. So it even made
Mm,
parents of this alpha, the Gen Alpha, to use shortcuts. Like you would give your
mm.
son or your daughter a phone to just start playing games with it, and then eventually
Yes,
they
yes.
reach a point they are maybe bored with the game. They find something interesting, they start watching. So it ended up being the
Mm,
their phone being their teacher, and that time even people were learning
yes.
online, the classes were closed. So it empowered them to start researching in the online space. And knowledge is power. The more someone gains knowledge, the more they're interested to know more. Like now, if they already know what they know, they want to know more. So it gives them that um know how, or they want to, they cannot not be fooled, so even when they want to buy or purchase something, it makes sense if they are focused more on the brands as opposed to the influencers, because now they relate with
Influencers.
what the brand is saying. Yeah, so I think it's because of
Yeah.
the knowledge that has been spread across board. It has enabled them to be empowered. Like the more you empower people with knowledge, the more they know, okay, this is value, this is not value. This product is good, this product is not good. So an influencer will not just tell me, I use this product because he says I use it because I believe the influencer, but I'll go back to the brand and find out, is this product the value that I'm being perceived? Is it the same that the influencer is saying, or it's a different one? Or so that gives them more information, which is a very good thing. So even as marketers, we need to focus on how do we sell our brands or our products
Mm.
or the products of of our clients. Like how do we ensure that we empower the Gen Alpha or convince them with the value that the product or service provides. Yeah, so
For me,
it's a good
for
thing.
me, I'm of a different. I don't want to say different opinion, but I am of. I want to take this report with a pinch of salt because the demographic of this audience is pre-teens actually. Let's between if you're 13 and 14, you've just entered your teenage years, and of course then there is the younger audience. And in my view, the demographics dictate the medium or the type of content these guys watch. The kids and the teens are watching stuff. Those things that are in Disney. They're watching those Cocomelons and whatnot. So definitely there will be educational content because it is something that is entertaining, but is also teaching them, how to talk, how to count numbers and whatnot. And for the guys who are entering their teenage years, is also telling them about different things. So I don't think necessary. I think for an advertiser, this is not a unique, in my view, a unique audience. It's just that the way they consume media is heavily influenced by the generation they were born in, but they are still kids. So if you're marketing kids products, in my view, what you should just do more or less is to change your medium. And if you're doing a lot of traditional advertising, you need to focus heavily on digital. And digital here, you need to focus on where these kids are. Look at YouTube. If you're doing Google Ads, look at channels that are for kids. If you're doing advertising on TV or on the phones, look at game sites or gaming devices. So instead of maybe doing just a normal social media advertising, maybe even some of them are not even allowed to be on social media. You can do maybe the in-app advertising and also do the Google Ads. So like there is a whole in of course there is of course Gen Alpha and whatnot, but in my view they are still just kids. So just advertise to them as you would have advertised to a kid, only that your medium has to change. And when you're talking about informative content or bit-sized content, of course
Yeah,
these kids have that's the only thing that they have grown to know, that before they interact even with the world, most of the content they'll interact with will be that. But as they move to an older period, now assuming that they move from 14, then they go to 16, 18, definitely I can almost guarantee that their interests will also change. But if you are a business or or a service that is catering to this niche, yes, then it makes sense to talk about edutainment, and also narrow down your mediums of where you advertise. Vicky?
But I also think, when we talk about this sophistication, it even comes down to the technology and what they watch. You see,
Mm,
like when you're young, uh, the games we used to play, they were so they were so simple, and you will not have
yes.
those. It was not complicated. Like right now, when a kid goes to the phone, they will start maybe the young the babies would watch Cocomelon, but now you see,
Mm,
because they have been empowered earlier enough to use the technology, they
mm,
get bored with whatever they were watching when they were 3 years. So by the time they
mm,
are 4 years, they have
mm.
advanced. By the time they are 5 years, they are driving the cars, the
Tracks.
remote cars on their phones. Yeah, by the time they are
Mm,
7 years, they want to do the real driving, so they go to look for
mm.
toys that are related to that. So it makes them, it makes their mind be empowered, and they think.
So they're maturing
They
faster in terms of
Yes, they
sophistication.
are maturing fast. I think that's what I would say
Mm,
about this Gen Alpha. So if it makes them
yeah.
mature faster, it means they're able to reason differently from how you can, like now, if you sell something to a kid, that kid can tell you if this is good or bad.
Mm,
I don't like it or I like it. Like
yeah.
they are mature
Yeah.
enough enough.
Sometimes they're the ones
They are
guiding you
maturing.
what to buy them.
Yes, at a very young age, even before they become teens. So I think that's what maybe the marketers need to think about. You not just come
Yeah,
and
sure.
just sell me anything. I have to really put thought in what I'm going to market or to
Creative,
sell
creative.
to
Yes.
that gen. Yes,
Mm.
yes.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, the creativity element also has to. You have to uh, uh, be creative in your advert, because remember also these kids have been accustomed to skipping ads. So when they are playing a game and
Yeah,
they see an ad on the phone that is not skippable, then they will just wait for the ad. In fact, their head or their mind just switches off, and they wait for the ad to allow them to skip, then they skip. Same with YouTube or any other medium that they're consuming on video. So as a service provider, you have to really work hard to ensure that as the kid is waiting to skip the ad, you have engaged them in a manner that makes them, okay, let me not skip this ad. This cartoon or this thing this guy is talking about is important. So when you're doing an advertising, it's also very very key right now for you to, especially if you are targeting this demographic. Please, you cannot just be doing an ad because you have the, you're doing an ad to share on Google Ads. You have to also put in a lot
yeah,
of effort into the type of creative that you're doing, and it has to capture the different audience. Like you said, a 2-year-old will be different. Will have this a different interest for a 14-year-old from a 7-year-old. And if you're targeting, you have to be also more specific, because there is no longer an universal where you'll be like, they're just kids, so you give them the same type of content. It's very different. And so yeah, and that brings us to the end of the news segment for this week. Remember again to like, share, subscribe, and of course, we always encourage you to give your comments on the areas that you think we might have covered more, or we needed to have covered more, and just additional feedback on the way we carry out this podcast. But until next time, my name is Steven Atema.
I'm Atema Victoria. Thank you for watching. Bye.
Bye.